Welcome to Gentleman Cave, a podcast for everyone. I think it's important to note that you do not need to be a gentleman to enjoy this show or even to participate in it. As of now, the only requirements that I have for guests are that they have internet access, a Skype account, a decent webcam, a microphone, a quiet place to implement those tools so as not to compromise the production value that I am going for. And then lastly, the ability to carry a conversation because I don't really feel proficient in that area enough yet to host my own podcast. I'm kind of just diving in here, jumping the gun, but that's kind of how I do things. I learn by doing. I'm sorry. Rosie! So, yeah, do not be fooled, like I said, by the term man cave in the name. This podcast is about as inclusive as it gets. Again, to be a guest, all you need is the gift of gab and resources that are on par or better than mine. My mission statement for now is just trying to sort out what being a well-adjusted adult man may look like for me in the best way I know how, which is publicly. Yeah, I am your host, Alex McConaughey, an autodidact and aspiring modern-day gentleman. What would make me a modern-day gentleman, you ask? I do not know. That is what we're here to find out. According to gentlemansjournal.com, 5 everyday traits of a modern gentleman are as follows. 1, he knows how to apologize. 2, he knows how to compliment a woman without it being taken as lecherous. And so far, these are pretty low bars. 3, he understands that chivalry is not dead, and I'm actually really excited to explore that one because if you know me, you know I'm big on medieval movies, and I would love to incorporate more cosplay in my day-to-day. Number 4, he dresses well, but not necessarily in suits. I just went with the suit today. You can just throw money at the problem. Go to a retailer with name brand stuff and have personnel sell you clothes that society sanctions as fashionable. So that's easy peasy. And those are just a few things for me to consider. You might ask why now, why I've decided on the podcast now. It's because it's a new year. I've been taking inventory of my life, and I am used to not living up to my potential. But now that I'm in my 30s, it can feel worse. So long story short, I was living in New York for 10 years, dabbling in live comedy, doing some acting here and there. But for the most part, I spent my time and energy in my apartment writing prospective action screenplays with David Boreanaz in mind for the lead. And I could have done that literally anywhere else. Literally anywhere with cheaper real estate. So, and now, flash to now. I'm currently back in my hometown, Atlanta. And let me just say, being back here is nothing like the last stage of the hero's journey. I have not returned with any insight elixir. I guess Joseph Campbell says elixir. But no, I'm a divorcee, a credit card debtor, and for lack of a better word, a dilettante. I like to sound smart. And I think, I've hammered too many nails to have excelled in any one field, so I figure I need to go back to the drawing board and work on the fundamentals, like being stable. I'd like to be, I'd like to be a stable man. And I do want to point out that I don't think it was a lack of charm or even genius that, rendered me a failure in the big city. I mean, the pandemic definitely did a number on me. It killed any momentum I may have had taking more roles as the off-color heartthrob in the student films. And yeah, I will blame the pandemic for that, but I will also take responsibility. I did let myself go during lockdown. I stopped moisturizing, stopped taking my supplements, and to be honest, in harshly lit bathrooms, I can see my boyish good looks fading. I see crow's feet canvassing across my face and the gray hairs. it has been demoralizing to me, to the point that I did fall off the wagon down here. And that's not, let me just say, my friends and family have suggested that I may in fact be an alcoholic, but I know myself, and I feel like that is a brazen oversimplification. I'm addicted to Four Loko is what it is, and specifically the strawberry lemonade flavor. But long story short, I am fighting that impulse to collect and chug those, I like to call them cylindrical Easter eggs, because they're just so colorful. And I'm avoiding the insides of gas stations, and I've even started a petition to try to get Four Loko to make their labeling less seductive to people with my aesthetic sensibilities. I think the most important thing for my mental health right now is activity and community, namely online activity and engaging with people online. So for now, that is this podcast, Raison d'etre. That, and to give me the insights I need to author my own self-help literature, which has been a low priority dream of mine ever since I read Dale Carnegie's masterpiece, How to Win Friends and Influence People, at the age of 4. You heard that right. I learned to read and was able to fully grasp Dale's work at the age of 4, which I've been told is impressive. I don't know. Anyway, I have tried building a bit of in-person community in recent months, and that has proven futile. 2 failed book clubs, 3 failed movie nights. The people aren't having it right now is the thing, and I have to believe that that is solely owing to the pandemic, because if I am anything, it is approachable, and I make good dip. I've got a crock pot, and I'll make so many dips. Okay, yeah, so the book I would like to discuss today is Green Lights by Academy Award-winning actor and star of Guy Ritchie's 2019 action comedy, The Gentleman. A man who needs no introduction, certainly not mine, Matthew McConaughey. I do have to say, this is one book I did initially judge by its cover. If you've seen it, you know it showcases a portrait of Matthew reflecting on his life and enjoying the view, as he says. And yeah, I have to say I resented it at first. It felt a bit smug to me, but I can see now that the way that I perceived it on the new release stand at Barnes & Noble was probably owing to my own baggage. I was an unwavering McConaughey fan up until early 2020, I would say, when my then-wife served me divorce papers the same night she confronted me about how often I listened to his bedtime story on the Calm app. So, and it's taken me a long time for me to fully acknowledge that it wasn't Matthew's fault my marriage dissolved, and it had more to do with my emotional unavailability and my insomnia, which has been called crippling. Yeah, she had a good deal to do with it too, but I'm not here to talk negatively about anyone. That's one of my resolutions. So yeah, after reading this book, my devotion to Matt is back and stronger than ever. It is a true achievement, and to be honest, it was life-changing for me, not only because it offers an approach that will maximize rewarding opportunities, or green lights, as he calls them, but also because, quite simply, I got to spend an evening with Matthew McConaughey. I do wish we had longer than that, but I couldn't put the thing down, and I'm an incredibly fast reader. So without further ado, I would like to bring our first guest on, Dan Fox. He is an actor, a producer, comedian, and personal friend of mine based in Brooklyn, where we used to collaborate on selfie stick content and lament on the scourge of phone addiction, my own included. So Dan, I don't know if you feel this way, but for a lot of my friends and associates, I feel like I pop out of the woodwork after a couple years, and instead of asking them how they're doing, I ask them to be on my new podcast. So please allow my first question to be, how are you doing?
Thank you so much. And just before I answer that question, which is very gracious of you, I do just want to point out that I think content is your love language.
Right.
So I do, and in knowing that, giving given your question to me context, I do feel loved. I just want you to know that.
That's very thank you. That's very powerful. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. How am I doing? I'm doing pretty well. I will say green lights, green light, green lights, green light.
Green lights,
Is it
plural.
lights or green lights?
You
Yeah.
have to hope there's more than one.
That's for sure. I think it came to me at the right time, and I feel like in an odd way, you asking me to do this podcast was its own green light.
You're
So
you're making me blush over
if
here.
that isn't full circle, I don't know what it is.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I just made a pretty big life decision the other week, and I don't want to say it wasn't affected by me reading green lights.
Was it?
It
That's
was
beautiful. That is beautiful. I love that. All right. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's crazy. To be honest, you are the only person who is willing to read a book with me, and it's interesting, or the only person who I would have on the inaugural episode of this podcast. And I just want to know why you think our contemporaries, comedians, performers, whatever, why aren't they reading, Dan? Why aren't people reading?
I mean, you kind of already brought up the answer previously, but I think we're all addicted to social media a little bit too much. I know once I switched over to my light phone, which
I was
is
going to get into that.
this is a little
I love
plug. Light phone, no social media, no internet, no
Mm.
email. There's a direct correlation to how much I read and when I stopped using a smartphone. I will say also that I'm an English major, and hey, listen, I'm not one of those guys who grew up reading. I went to college for sports, booze, and women.
You studied sports.
I studied the sports of majors, which is business.
Oh, nice. Okay. I see.
I thought I was going to be a business major. And then a couple things happened all at once. I took my first improv comedy class, and I took my first creative writing class, and I read the first book that I ever really loved.
Can you tell me what it is?
I don't remember.
You don't remember the...
Correct. Yeah, precisely. I do remember reading a book called Middlemarch that I thought I was going to hate by George Eliot, which is a pen name for, I forget her name. It was a heady little period of my life, and one that the promise of college was fulfilled.
Tell us more about the light phone before we get into more of green lights.
Yeah, definitely. Green light phone, just to tie it together there. I went to a Tame Impala concert at Radio City. I was on a decent amount of Molly, and I was kind of stoned, and everybody was just filming them the whole concert, and I couldn't see the band playing. And that's when I was like, it's fucking phones, man. Phones are ruining everything. Phones are getting in the way of my favorite music. They're getting in the way of my relationships, of my friendships. They're ruining, the world, etc. And this was October 2015. So the election was a year away. Trump was, already stirring shit up. I think the next year I saw a poster near my apartment as I was walking down the street of someone making fun of smartphones. And I went to the website. It was a light phone. And I was like, let me make comedy videos for you because I would like to.
I love that. I've never stumbled on any happiness scrolling through a feed. I'd be much more content just like standing barefoot on a patch of grass. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
But again, I think the internet has soiled me so much that sometimes, even when I'm outside, I'll remember the time that I discovered that video, Charlie Bit My Finger.
Yeah.
Which was at the Grand Canyon.
Wow. Beautiful setting to see such a viral video. Yeah. I think what bothers me is the fact that all these websites, these social media apps are controlled by algorithms that are created to manipulate our emotional state just for the clicks and for the the classic thing. I'm not breaking any new ground here, but everything's free because we are the product.
Right.
We're being bought and sold. One of the light phone mottos is like your time, their money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would get rid of Facebook, but my mom is trapped in there, so I feel like I wouldn't see her anymore. So I think Matthew McConaughey would actually really love what you're doing with the light phone, because it's clear the guy has never had a problem with screens. I mean, you can tell just by reading the book, he's never even, it doesn't even seem like he watches porn, judging from the wet dreams that he talks about in the book.
That's right.
Do you know what I'm talking about? They're so like mythical and not sexy. What were they, pythons that were encircling him in one?
He's floating through the Amazon, which led to him taking a trip to the Amazon. Part of me doesn't want to like believe that these things actually happen, but then I'm just like, why not?
You don't want to believe
stories.
You don't want to believe that he actually ejaculated to that. One of the reviews on the back cover by Mark Manson is he's calling it unflinchingly honest.
I mean, part of the book felt like Matthew McConaughey trying to get pretty deep. I will say at the beginning of the book, talking a lot about how his parents beat him and his brothers.
Right.
Was a little, off-putting. He does say like, I don't advocate for beating children, which I do appreciate. He does say that, but then he kind of like doubles back and he's like, but did I learn my lesson? Yes.
Right. No.
So I'm like,
yeah.
What do you really mean here, Matthew?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the thing about corporal punishment or like beating children has always been a bit controversial in my memory.
I think so.
Yeah. The thing is, there are like a million different ways things can go sideways in the psychology of a child if you beat it or the child.
I think so.
And
I saw this.
Or they could turn out to be a one in a million movie star who starves himself to play a guy with AIDS remarkably well. You just don't know. But I don't think you should beat children. I think that's like it's an easy hill to die on, for sure.
His older brother was also wildly successful doing something, I forget.
And then Matthew McConaughey feels like one of the boys when he fights a bouncer, something like that.
In front of his dad.
Right. Violence was definitely that was the love language.
Love language.
Right.
Yeah, violence that's like the furthest thing away from a love language for me.
Right. I don't enjoy it. I'm not a big fan. I don't like engaging in it. I'll watch it. I will watch a Quentin Tarantino movie.
I wanted to ask you, this is a little unrelated, but I was just thinking about it. Do you remember when you did that test with your bowel movement and sent it in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Viome is what they call it.
Viome?
Viome, yeah. My mother got it for me for Christmas because she's big on health, and you defecate into a vial and you send it to a lab and they give you your optimum diet after testing the bacteria in your feces. But they didn't have a license in New York. I had to drive down to D.C.
You don't have the license?
I don't know. New York was one of the states that I was unable to mail feces in, so I had to drive down to D.C.
You drove all the way to D.C.?
Well, I made it a trip. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, I had other things to do in D.C., but then I went to a nice little coffee shop named Dolcezza, I believe, and
that's where you did it.
That's where I did it, and it took quite a while because I had to read the instructions. They give you a net to collect your sample.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, how they do that.
Why?
I do like the idea of. Yeah, I think I do. I do like the idea of a road trip movie where you have to get to DC to send your poop.
Yeah,
I bet McConaughey's done some weird stuff with feces.
I'm sure all celebrities do. I mean, Kim Kardashian had that blood treatment where she put blood on her face. There's a reason they look so good so long. They have the inside scoop.
True.
For sure.
Gosh, I do wonder about the elites in this country. Do you watch Succession?
I do, yeah.
I feel like that's a fun look into the elites, and I've been working on some impressions from the show.
Do you have Ken?
I have a Ken, yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, I have a Ken.
Let's see Ken.
Right, yeah. How about we fucking gut this conversation? We'll fucking put it in a basket and row it down the river and let some people pick it up, and fucking there's your baby Moses, right? So I'm good. We're good. We're good.
That is really spot on. Yes. He is he's a human wet blanket, that one.
Right.
Yeah.
No spoilers. I'm only halfway done with the second season. Okay. So I have a question for you. Just to bring it back to McConaughey, or to borrow his language. Mm-hmm. Say, and this is a little bit of a mindful meditation exercise for you.
Okay.
Say this podcast leads to a big green light,
mm-hmm.
and that green light leads to another green light. What are those green lights for you?
I think anything that gets me out of Cold Stone Creamery. Yeah, anything where I don't have to scoop ice cream anymore for a paycheck.
You're working at Cold Stone?
Yeah. It's hard for me to imagine making money doing something like this, but it's something that does lead to other things. A lot of the content I've made has gotten me roles and other stuff. And you know me, I'm addicted to social media like everyone else, so I'm used to immediate gratification. But I feel like if I just put that on the back burner and just keep doing what I do, then I don't know if that answered the question.
If I sent you a light phone, would you try a week going light?
Yes, I would, because I feel like the only time I really use my iPhone now is to film and to monitor who's liking my things. So.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, I was maybe a couple weeks ago, I just remember being pretty inebriated or high and being like, I'm going to call Blaze. He didn't pick up.
Blaze is hard to get a hold of, that one.
Is he?
Yeah. Yeah. But I know that they were on tour for like a week and then they got, 2 weeks and then they got COVID.
What do you think is the best age to be at during this past 2 years?
That's a great question. Probably our age.
Right?
I think probably our age.
With no kids. With no kids,
correct. I would say so, right? Because we're supposed to be kind of like settling down. We're not supposed to be going out all the time.
Right. We already did that.
We did that. And then...
but we also have a lot of life ahead of us.
Right. I think so. Yeah, and quarantine was a good time. As soon as the unemployment check came in, I was, just tweaking my skills on the Adobe suite.
I can finally move past just guitar tabs and chords and actually get into some theory.
Wrote a screenplay about I don't want to say it in case somebody takes the gimmick because wrote a horror screenplay. Ended up getting a divorce and moving to Atlanta. So,
yeah, some people say there's no such thing as a bad divorce. So,
yeah, I think it needed to happen for sure. Yeah, she sledgehammered one of my hard drives, but it was the one that I had all the. It was just my freelance one. I had like a horse racing syndicate video on there. Nothing I actually cared about. So yeah, I rented a Fiesta and I got all my stuff and I came to Atlanta and it was hard. Of course it was hard, but yeah, I don't think that necessarily would have happened so quickly if we weren't locked in one studio apartment together. And also my gut feels better down here because I think I actually developed IBS up there so that I could go into the restroom more.
How's your IBS? And what were the symptoms?
Just a lot of bloating. A lot of bloating and then sudden urges to go. So, And then once I got in there, I felt fine. I just needed some alone time.
Yeah.
So I did want to ask you to get back to Matthew.
Yeah, of course.
Did you feel more of a connection to Matthew McConaughey after reading the book? I mean, you would have to, but did you feel like he was talking to you?
I will say, to a certain degree, yes. I did feel like I was able to party with a couple of things that he was saying. I did feel like I got to know him a little bit better, and maybe even myself a little better.
I like that. Yeah. For me, when I read it, I was kind of amazed at some of the similarities I share with him, other than the upbringing and the success, I guess. But yeah, I have noted a few of them here. If you'll let me rattle these off,
please. Yeah.
His first gig in showbiz was as a hand model through Donna Adams' talent agency. And I was actually recently, I don't know if you know this, I was recently a hand model on a girl named Donna's nail art account. And yeah, she was exploring ways to make nail polish more masculine. So I was kind of honored that she would ask me to do that.
That's a big coincidence.
Yeah. Another one is
Green light.
Green light. There you go. Another one is Matthew had a friend in college named Braydon, who gave him a self-help book. And I had a friend in college named Braden. They're spelled differently, but still it's weird. And Braden introduced me to Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, and
great bass.
Yes,
great bass in
yes.
that band.
And their music actually helped me sleep through my dorm mates' sex parties during final exams. So I thought that was interesting. Okay, yeah, so Matthew went to Africa in search of one of his musical heroes, a bluesman by the name of Ali Farka Touré, who speaks the language Bambara. My musical heroes, up until I lived with them, were in a post-punk band, fortuitously enough, called Bambara. You know that. My bedroom used to be a roped-off section of their practice space for a few years. So it's hard to keep the magic alive under those circumstances, but you know that struck me as like a weird, thing we shared. And then yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of similarities I didn't write down, but the parallels just kind of like blew me away when I did read them. And it definitely
I did yeah. I appreciated that his most famous lines were largely improvised from Dazed and Confused.
Right. Oh yeah, that was interesting.
That's kind of cool.
That.
I think he lives his life very improvised, which I appreciate.
Definitely think he's a yes and kind of guy, where he's just like, okay, this is well, life's supposed to be an adventure, so I kind of have to go rent motorcycles.
Because guess what?
I have a sty right now. Is it distracting you right now?
I'm getting the feed from the other video, so I'm not looking at you through your computer.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, this sty followed me into the new year, and I've become just a total germaphobe, like washing my pillowcases all the time. I cannot imagine just jumping into the Hudson with a selfie stick. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm losing the plot here. Dan, I'm losing the plot.
It's okay. We're talking about McConaughey, green lights.
Right.
My computer is running out of battery.
Oh, here, I'm almost done anyway. Let's see. Could a sty be a green light in some context? I think if you don't want to talk to somebody, if somebody's like, "Excuse me, sir," and you turn around and you just blink hard and let them have it, they might cut the conversation a little short. So in that way, you can use it to your advantage. I don't know if you.
That's a good way to look at it.
I don't know.
Oh, you know what I wanted to ask you? So 2 things. One, I have an old joke that was a Matthew McConaughey joke.
Oh yeah, what is it? Yes,
you want to hear
please.
It? How does Matthew McConaughey order his turkey sandwiches?
You're gonna have to tell me.
On rye.
That's great. That's good.
Thanks.
And that's actually crazy, because that's another similarity that we would share.
Yeah, I love turkey on rye with
mustard.
a little mustard.
Yes,
now, my
absolutely.
mouth is watering now, bud.
Rosé! Which of Matthew's lessons in the book do you see yourself applying to your creative pursuits?
I think he did a good job. He's talking about his romantic
Mm-hmm.
comedies and how it became his bread and butter. And then he ended up turning down a lot of roles and a lot of up to like what, $20 million or some shit
It
like
was
that.
crazy. Yeah.
And I think the lesson from that I pulled was like a lot of money can bring a lot of material wealth and maybe some new fast friends and stuff, but it won't satisfy your creative hunger and soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of vibe with that.
I love that. Yeah.
Hmm.
I liked the sometimes which choice you make is not as important as making a choice and committing to it.
Sure.
Just for me, I burn out easily, and I go into these like depressions between projects because as we talked about, content creation uh, is not just my love language, but a means of escapism, and
Mm.
it's a way for me to avoid uh, an extremely uncomfortable relationship that I have with my default reality, and that's why I like to do sustained series because they last longer. But even so, when I exhaust one series and it's time to go back to the drawing board, my life feels completely devoid of meaning. So
Mm.
it's kind of like coming out of a luxurious bath into some unforgiving landscape, like tundra or polar or something, and then I stay in that place until I can commit to the next project. And this project was actually an idea I did not think I would pursue and might not have
Mm.
had I not read that axiom that he had, which is just
There you go.
commit to a choice regardless of what it is. So, um,
I think you know what I'm about to say, but
your computer's about to
green light.
green light, baby. And yeah, I just want to stay in the bath metaphor I used as long as possible with these projects.
Sure.
So
Green light. Green light. The jacuzzi jets are now
mhm.
running.
I feel good about this right now. And I want to thank you for being in this
Good.
jacuzzi with me.
Anytime.
But I'm not done. I have three more questions for you.
Sure. Yeah.
What are your views on marriage?
Pass.
No, I meant what are your views on Matthew McConaughey's marriage to Camilla, as detailed in the book?
Gotcha. Okay. That helps me with that question.
Do you think it's healthy? You think it's a good one? I mean, obviously, we don't know what happens behind closed doors, but I feel like
We don't know what happens. It feels like she she's pretty supportive
mm-hmm.
of him.
Yeah.
I can't really remember the specifics. I know he like fell in love with her at a bar or something, and but it seems like she gives him space, which is
I
good
think
for a
that's good,
relationship.
right? I love Matthew's analogy starting on page 61, where he loses his mojo to a red sports car. Do you remember that part? Like where he got the red sports
Yes,
car and
yes,
then lost his
yeah.
appeal or whatever. Does that
Hmm.
resonate with you? Like, can you recall a time that you tried hard to be cool and it backfired?
Mm.
I'll tell you mine. I had a jinko phase for a bit in high school, and I did my
Hmm.
hair up like Seth Green's character in Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. And my acquaintances,
Hmm.
all of them started to distance themselves from me in the cafeteria. And they probably couldn't put their finger on it at the time, but they could tell that I was being a hack. I don't know. I thought
Yeah.
Seth Green was cool at the
I,
time.
I feel like I had a very similar phase when all the kids were skating and I was on my bike pretending I could hang with them. I think I just felt like a
Oh, you were
poser,
on your bike while they were on their skateboards?
you know?
Yeah. No, I feel you on
Yeah.
that. I tried to take up skateboarding during quarantine, but it doesn't work when you're in your 30s. There's a
Yeah.
small window where you can pick that up. So
The only way you could do it is if you're like fully had all of your wrist guards and knee guards and helmet, and then you just, I don't know.
But even so, there's no community because you just look like a pedophile going to the skate park.
That's true. That's true.
If you're not good, you're not allowed to be at the skate park past the age of, what, 17?
Yeah.
I think that's a good rule. I've never conducted a book club discussion, and I've never actually done a podcast either. So, but I think this was a great first go at it, and I appreciate your patience, Dan. I appreciate you carrying this conversation because I don't know if you could tell, but I've been struggling through this in my head. I've been like, am I a good host?
I think you're being a little harsh on yourself. Okay. I think you did a great job.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you again for helping me get this first episode launched. And I think I'll be up there in February to finally catch Hamilton at Richard Rodgers Theater. So
I'll go with you.
Beautiful. Call me, and we'll talk more about Matthew McConaughey's Wet Dreams. I just need to recap. I need to do a recap on those because I'm forgetting some of the details.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you later, Dan.
All right, buddy.
See you, my dude.
You have been listening to Gentleman Cave.